this year that I notice when I go back, and I freak out every time. I'm like, "This car's flying." So I'm kinda getting through that right now.
Okay.
But the interesting thing is, like, the traffic is more it's easy to direct, like, red lights are still there, the road systems are still there, but they are, Earth has grown up over the asphalt. So they have, like, these paved roads, and then grass is growing over them, and you have some rails that are electronically guided, but they aren't, like, Isa has explained to me before that these, like, these rails are kinda like more like they look like spokes sticking up on each of the side of the systems, and they are electronic, and they do something interesting that sends plasma electric energy up into the it ionizes the engines of the car, um, and the plasma ionizes things. And this is some of the things she's described to me because I follow this route in every time I go to her yoga studio. It's the only studio with a big rickety blue door in the middle of downtown LA. Everything else looks so citified, and she just refuses that shift. Reminds me of some of you guys. But anyway, these little spokes stick out, and they are there to, like, keep the car guided on the direction, because so you can't actually have wrecks if you come to a space where you are less than a car distance, a car like the diameter of your car, the length of your car distance, a whole car length's distance. If you start to get closer to another car, the system will slow you down so that you don't hit them. So if you decide to drunk drive and you run into things because you're going too fast, the systems are programmed to stop you from hitting others. Now you could slam your own head into your window if they have to automatically stop you, but they'll try to slowly stop you if they can. Otherwise, the damage you do is only to yourself if you have to have an immediate stop. So those are some of the things I noticed right away when I was just following the energy trails into downtown LA when I first met her that I wanted to share. And the hover cars are um about, just gauging from what I can say, I'd say 2.5 feet, depending upon the type of vehicle, but 2.5 feet above the ground. They're not like flying around in the air or anything. So the road systems had to change. And she said it took about 20 years to change road systems because everything is so different now. Just rocking up to her door now. Okay. There she is in her, you know, these yoga pants that she has on are those the baggy style that we wear now, and nobody wears them anymore, so they're considered kind of like she's explained to me, like in our age group, we consider like the bell-bottom 1970s pants like old school, and she considers these modern yoga pants that we have now very old school, and she's still wearing those. And they have little mini spaceships all over them, and she's wearing a Star Wars T-shirt. One of the most unusual people I've ever met. She has 6 cats, and she lives on top of her studio. She's at the yoga studio, and then the 2nd floor is her loft apartment. What do you guys wanna ask her?
Well, the first question you had, I think, is good. Is well, let's just ask how the state of the world is and if we're working together yet.
She said, "Define working together."
anything. Are we getting along?
No. Stop expecting it to change, she says. When you just expect that people are going to be different, then it gets easier. What we did do, she says, we're able to avert a whole world war. We went into big financial crisis. We had many issues with money, but now we're finally operating on systems financially where people can choose their currency. People can choose if it is electronic or not. There are electronic currencies. There are cryptocurrencies. There are a different type of currencies that are somewhere in between. There's still cash. There's still physical currencies for every part of the world. But what's unique is that we get to decide, and everybody accepts every form of currency, no matter where you go in the world. That just started last year, that every part of the world is required to accept every currency. And they can exchange it. You still have to honor exchange rates. But exchange rates aren't horrible anymore because we're not pushing and pulling upon each other. And we're not in war. People don't have time for that. The earth has gone through so many disastrous things, both natural and manufactured. So for those of you who fear that it's manufactured, you have right to fear. But for those of you who are concerned that it's natural, you have right to be concerned. It was a bit of both. It doesn't matter exactly how it happened. It mattered that we had to become interdependent upon one another. It mattered that we had to also become less dependent upon our governments. And one thing that my parents taught me about your culture is that you are in the first stages of understanding everything and fully awakening into what you learned, who was doing what in the world, and then you got so sick of it that you ignored it for a while, and that didn't work. But you switched from woke culture into awakened culture. Woke culture was necessary. You had to understand what was happening in the 1% of people controlling your systems, and you had to undo those systems. But that had to happen individually and internally. And that has taken until 2 years ago for people to understand that you can't fight fire with fire. You can't bring down systems individually, and you can't even bring them down collectively, because that degree of persistence does not work well. That's not how this universe works. If you go towards systems and you attempt to fight them and expose them, yes, sure, you can expose them, but you can't bring them down by fighting them. This is how you brought that down. You stopped feeding the systems. You created your own. You became independent of your governments and interdependent upon each other. And congratulations, because between your time in 2023 until 2075, that's a short amount of time to do that. You want everything, and you want these changes all at once. But believe me, that's a short amount of time. I too am a remote viewer. And looking back at how my mother remote viewed your systems, I can deeply understand that it could have taken you much longer. So don't worry about speeding it up. Not everyone wants to be where you are. Just become inclusive and accept each other and create your own systems, both individually and together. This consciousness that you're building is very, very different, but you are on track. You've averted an entire world war. You've had some cold wars, but you expected that. That was required for the financial institutions to crash further. But you can't be fully dependent upon that. You need to create other systems of life. And you have in my time frame. Congratulations.
There's a few of us are quite happy that California is still in existence. We're glad to see it hasn't fallen into the ocean.
Oh, it kind of did, but it wasn't as bad as everyone was projecting. We've had a tsunami. We've had more earthquakes that were disastrous than we can count on, and we learned. We learned a lot about how to build both residential and commercial buildings that are earthquake-proof completely. Many of our Asian architectural specialists and engineers help design these systems that can withstand a lot. We can withstand the ocean now. We learned from Norway. Who better to learn from? We can withstand the quakes now. Who better to learn from than Hong Kong?
Oh.
We've been through a lot, and we've had to rebuild many times. But no, I wouldn't say we fell into the ocean. I would say the ocean came to us.
Well, I'm glad there's been some change in a positive way. We would very interested about your spiritual teachings. There are a lot of spiritual followers here. We're interested in if there's any advice you would give the spiritual teachers in our time, what they should focus on.